So we're going to take a look at some gymnastics, some ring muscle up stuff, and just progressions there. We'll also tie it to like some bar muscle up progression as well. Then we'll talk about rope climb and kind of what I'm thinking for today's call is like if we are going through a class, both of those movements definitely prompt some anxiety to coaching. They're two, super advanced movements. They're also two movements that I would say there's a higher risk than others. You're up suspended in the air. So going about them in a really structured, progressed manner, not just to be teaching them and have people getting success on that end of the spectrum, but also as a coach, like I really need to make sure I go through each stage as I progress in class. So everyone lands where they need to land, not just for a threshold training scaling option, but for a safety option as well. And I'm going to give some examples that like people have the capacity, but I don't want them going up a rope because they didn't show me certain things as we built up. So I think those are important tools to have. Before I even start to even get into that, something I think when we talk about movements like this, we talk about group management and control. These are days that you have to be a little more of an iron fist because all of us have probably been either a part of class or coaching a class where you have some dude, it's never a girl. You have some dude that has no business going up the rope, decides to not listen to you, and they go up the rope and they get up there and then they don't know how to get down. And like, I'm a big guy, but I don't want to catch a 200-pound male falling. Like it's just not going to happen. Lisa probably can handle it, but she don't want to catch one either, right? So having a little bit more of a stern, like this is when we go, this is when we don't go, like keep that in mind for those classes. You want that control because you don't want somebody swinging on the rings and having an arm shoot you and dislocating a shoulder or falling off a rope. You know what to do, but they're not listening. Let's start ring muscle ups first. You got ring muscle ups in class. Beyond demonstration, taking athletes to the rings, how are you guys going to approach that? What are you going to do first? We can even, 1 second, Dean, I don't know what you can even rewind that a little sooner than the specific warm up of ring muscle ups. Go ahead.
I guess if it would be before the specific warm up, maybe, go over push-ups and pull-ups, see where it is with that.
100%. It can be as simple as that. So like in the general warm up, maybe toward the back end of it, have your athletes do a set of push-ups, maybe a set of pull-ups or just something of like a pulling nature. And it's obviously a warm up, but like can start to give you the clues of accessing where everybody is. If I have an athlete that cannot do a push-up, I know that athlete's not going to be on the rings doing strict ring dips. So it just starts to give you the stages there, and you know where they're going to fall within your progression and scaling options because you already have seen what their capabilities are. I'm approaching this like I know none of my athletes. I know when you guys go to your gym and class, like people, who's going to be getting up on rings and who's not. But you never know when you get a free trial. You never know when you get a drop in or you're in a setting where you don't know people. So you'll use that as an assessment for yourself moving forward. Great job. What's next? Let's say we're giving two specific warm-ups now. Ring muscle up, first thing you do.
The support hold?
Support hold, right? I want to see a support hold. Why?
See if they can hold themselves up.
Yep, straight up as easy as that. I want to see if they have the ability to be stable on those rings. So it's not just holding themselves up. There's a big difference between being in a support hold and I'm just hanging out here and being a support hold and I'm doing this, right? Don't want that person going through rings dynamically with no feet on the ground. That ain't gonna end well. So yeah, I'm literally still just assessing each person. I can also give teaching points there too, right? Like active shoulders, like we're gonna press down on the ring. So I am starting to teach them a ring muscle up, but I need to see where everyone is. So ring support hold, that's progression one. Give me, you're writing your lesson plan for class. Give me a couple things you can do so you have CrossFit Games athlete doing what they should be doing, and then you have grandma that's going to be able to do what she can do. So you
Can I
have
interject
this end of
before
the
you?
spectrum and this end. Go ahead, Justin.
I was gonna ask, so besides the ring hold at the top, would you also ask to see the ring hold at the bottom?
I do want to see bottom support. I'll tell you, you can do it a couple ways. Like you can straight up, yes, have them just do top, and then yes, just have them do bottom. The way I do it is I usually start top, and then what I do for bottom is I'll call the rep down, and I don't just let them go down and up. I go down, up. So they show me stability there by a ring dip. So you could do either one. 100% no wrong, right or wrong there. But yeah, you're spot on. I do want to see the bottom at some point in some fashion.
Is there like a length of time duration or like a rep count you would want to see before like being able to go down into a dip and then lifting back up? Like is one is sufficient, or would you want to see multiple before you start putting them onto like a muscle up dynamically?
I'm probably going to call like 3 to 4 reps, depending on how big class size is, because I do want to see repeatability. Because even if the workout calls for one muscle up a round, it's not like they're going to do one and be done. So I do need to see that they have the ability to have like that repeat fashion without things falling apart. So even if it's one a round and it's an AMRAP and they're going to get 10 rounds, like I need them to be safe and secure 10 times. Yeah, so I would see at least a couple reps. It's also, as I go through, I'm going to kind of circle back to that question as well, because you'll see how I can assess that as a coach as I go through my entire progression as well. So we've got ring support hold. I've got games athlete. I've got day one trial. In your lesson plan, you got progression one of that. Give me a couple things that I can make sure the whole group has something to do and someone's not just going to be standing there because they can't do it.
You mean with the support hold?
With the support hold specifically.
Toenail spot.
Mhm.
No spot. Perfect. Yeah, that's a good one. Have the way I like to set the room up is I'll have some real low ones. That way, if I've got someone that's 5 foot tall, they can toenail spot without adjusting things. I like to have at least like 2 or 3 of those rings. I'll have 2 or 3 of like a mid-level like belly button ring. I'll have 2 or 3 higher rings that are starting to get up to the chest. So basically, like those heights of rings aren't just for heights of people, but they're also for advanced different skills and fitness levels of different athletes as well. So yeah, so I've got athlete A, full support hold, no feet are on the ground. I've got athlete B, toenail spot support hold. And then I can even do, a box support hold or a matador support hold, something that's a static implement, not a dynamic. So now I've still got all classes going with me together in the ring. What's progression two? Kind of told y'all already.
Dip to the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to see a strict dip. I don't want to see a kipping dip. I want to see a strict dip. I also want to see range of motion here. So that's going to be part of my teaching point is that range of motion. So if someone goes, oh, I can't, my shoulder doesn't get down there. Well, that means when we turn over a ring muscle up, it's going to be a compromising position. So I also know that's a problem, right? I'm not going to let that person go ring muscle ups because odds are if their shoulder doesn't have range of motion, they're probably going to land there and they have the potential to hurt someone. So I'm going to be real picky about my range, and I'm still going to be real picky about active shoulders. You guys already have your scaling options. You can do the dip with the toenail spot or a static implement. So that kind of doesn't change as far as like your scaling goes. The only thing I would say is, let's say you got an 80-year-old grandma that came in. You may just have a real, like she just needs fitness. She doesn't need to ever do a ring muscle up in her life. So she may be doing a push up or scap push ups to build stability. So you can still have those for some people in your back pockets. So we got our dip. Like I told Justin, like I want to see control on that dip and I want to see strength in the bottom position. So I'll call those reps. Following the reps is going to give me a time to, if I need to spot somebody because they're getting shaky, I can do that. I can see range of motion easier. Like it's not going to be somebody that goes halfway and gets out before I see them. And it's also from a dead stop, like they're going to catch a muscle up. Do they have the strength to stabilize themselves, and do they have the strength to get out of a dip? So that's another just assessment that's happening there. Big one on the dip. One more thing I'm going to look for. We talked about it on dips before. Body position and what's happening.
The stability if they're shaking at the top.
Yeah, I'm going to look for that.
If they're bringing their body entirely down.
Yeah, I
Not
need to
just
make
their
sure that
shoulders.
the hips are dropping and rising as well. Because even if they go full range of motion and that shoulder gets below the elbow, but they've bent it like a book, and the only thing that moves is the chest. Now, when they do the muscle up, their hip ain't gonna be up here by the ring. Their hip's gonna be down here, and they're not gonna be able to get out of the muscle up. You see it all the time. It happens with women a lot. They turn it over, and they're like, "I do ring dips all the time, but why couldn't I get out?" There it is on the platter. So I also want to make sure the entire unit's moving. You have a question, D, or a statement?
Yeah, can you talk about like the different options for like group management depending on like how, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter how big the class is. But like either you can do a buddy system or you can
Yeah,
separate them, like, you know, this group goes first, this group goes after.
9 times out of 10, I pair people. Pair people, or even do groups of 3. Groups of 3 is going to depend on the size of the class. I'd rather not do groups of 3. I'd rather do 2s. I think for most of our classes, 2s per ring is probably going to work based on our size of gym and equipment. And then when I teach, I'm teaching to the group. Everybody's listening at the same time. When I go ahead and call the reps and group 1 is going through the rings, I'll give group 2 just something simple, like a warm up. Maybe it's a scorpion stretch. Maybe it's, plank, scat push-ups, like just something for them to do while I'm calling those reps. Also gives them the ability to have a break off the rings and not go back to back to back. So I think it works better for quality of movement because they get to have those little breaks. I'm not going to give them like burpees off the rings. Like it's going to be something that's like a mobility for it. So at all times, everybody in class has something to do. We don't have people just standing around. Did I answer your question well?
Yeah.
All right, progression 3, where are we going? So we've got support hold, we've got ring dip. What's my next move?
I mean, within, I guess it depends on how much time you have, but within the dip, you can either go negative, down, you can hold the bottom as well. Are like, I guess there's no wrong or right for that, or
I wouldn't say any wrong or right. Like if I've already established a dip and I know who's who in it, and I know who's going to be staying with like a toenail spot through, and I know who's going to, end up doing some point in time a low ring transition with feet off or, actual ring muscle ups. Like I'll divvy them that way. But I wouldn't spend like a ton of time on the dip because I also don't want to accumulate too much fatigue. So if you were gonna do something like a negative, I would do that in that first set. I wouldn't do dips and then come back to dips.
okay.
So we've got support hold, we've got ring dip
Uh,
Ring row.
ring row, yeah.
with. I'm looking for something with the ring row. I don't want to do just the ring row.
I mean the
With the turnover?
turnover.
No,
I mean,
not yet.
all right.
False script.
Duh,
Oh.
of course.
Damn it. I know you guys know that answer, but I'm making it all. Yeah, I'm gonna do a false script. So I'm gonna change it up so that way I make sure positions stay the same. That is obviously not only to teach the false script, but to make sure we get into a good spot when we do get to the turnover. So I'm teaching the false script very well. We can skip the part about actually teach the false script, right? I always go karate trap, grab the side, hold that flexion. Let's say you call the false script and everyone leans back and half of your class goes, boom, and they lose it. What's your cue for them? What's something you can give them that's going to make it easier to remain in the false script?
Maybe that they don't have to necessarily straighten their arm entirely, like they can keep it
Exactly.
bent a little bit to maintain that false grip.
Yeah, so if people are struggling holding it, letting them have tension and keeping some bent arms makes it a world of easier position. I would rather somebody here and be able to work proper position than to get to this point here and lose it over time. And then over time, obviously, range of motion is a very important thing. I do want to get them to a straight arm or hanging. You'll see the same thing on the strict muscle up. You can have people start bent, and then over time, you're trying to get to a full one. But yeah, great way to help ball strip in. People will usually be able to hold it. When you cue them to pull, what are you looking for?
You're looking for them to try to put their knuckles together and go to their sternum.
Perfect. Yeah, I want to see that fist bump. I want to see tightness and like they're hugging themselves into it, right? I don't want to see any split. Like you'll get a lot of people that do this. If they're doing this on a ring row, when they get on the rings, it's going to become this and they're not going to ever get through. So I really want to be tight into that sternum, tight fist bump together. I call those reps as well. I go pull, hold the pull, tactile cue people if I have to, verbally cue people, and then I'm like down. Now, I always stage my athletes. If you get into a real horizontal position, that's going to be really hard to hold. So I'm like, I don't care how deep you get, you can stand pretty tall for this. So stand so where you can hold the proper position, and I let everybody dictate their height stand. Everyone can do that one. Next stage.
Then you would start with the turnover.
I'll turn over. Yep, I'm gonna treat it like dancing. It's gonna be one, two. This is the most important position in my opinion, and then three, finish the day. If you kind of don't hold them there, what happens is they come up and they just do one of these and they never pass this low ring position and they never develop the skill of the actual turnover. So even though it's very hard to pause here and it's going to be more uncomfortable to pause in the bottom of the dip, I want to see those reps. Remind people you've got feet on the floor for a reason. Use them, right? It doesn't need to be this horrific, horrible, hard ring muscle up. We're learning skill. So let them have the feet touching the floor and having force. In this position here, right? Everyone just turned over and I have them in that bottom position. Obviously, I have people that can do a strict ring dip and I have people that cannot. What's a good thing you can give each person? So you've got a person that doesn't have a ring dip and you got a person that has a ring dip so they can be challenged in their own ways.
They can jump up.
Jumping ring dip. Yep. If they can do a support hold, I want to jump up, give me a second support hold, and then come down, let the feet contact back into that bottom position. They have obviously a dip. Go ahead and pull your feet off the floor, do your dip, feet are still off the floor, and then maybe you put them back down, transition back. If they don't have a support hold ability, we can just do a quick little jump and down. I don't need them to hold. Like I'm not going to be putting them on rings today anyway for support, but I can still at least have them go through a full ring muscle up progression. So I've got something for each of them.
So what about the grandma? What do we have when we're doing the transition? What do we do for the grandma?
Grandma, I don't want her doing the jump, obviously. So grandma's probably gonna stay ring row and then hit the deck, give me some push-ups. Like that's where we go back to that little bit of old school CrossFit before anybody was doing any kind of muscle up progression. They're like, oh, you don't have them, pull ups and dips, right? I'm sure some of you guys were around in those days and seen that. That's where I'm gonna use that strategy. Because grandma, I just want to get her stronger. I just want to get her being able to do her own groceries and cooking in her kitchen by herself and all those things. Grandma don't need to do it. Yeah, so I'll split it. I'll keep her on the ring row and I'll keep her still also developing the press. So she's just doing virtually a push-pull strength.
Okay.
There was
Just
there was
whoever.
one variation. There was one variation that they did in they used to have in my gym. So the wooden rings, they would put on a resistance band. And the person was sitting, and they will pull to the middle and push. So they do the whole process like for a strict
Yeah,
ring muscle
love
up
that.
with different resistance bands. So it will be different challenging.
Look,
Wait,
and
so the resistant band would be on a
So
bar and you would
the
go?
ring, yeah, and the loop here, and also in the, so
yeah,
it's there.
the ring is not on a strap. It's literally just a ring where you put a band on, and you put a band on like a pull-up bar.
Mhm.
So like the strap is the band essentially. I like
Got it.
that because especially even if it's not grandma and it's any athlete, like it's a good way to pass through proper positions and learn positioning without also killing yourself with it too. The only thing I would say about that is logistics are going to be a thing. You're going to get to class early to make sure all the rings are ready for that and your stage. You're going to have to prep everything for it. So if you are gonna choose that route, like you gotta, don't wait till class to do it. Like if you want to do it in class and you haven't done it, it's too late. You kind of don't have it. So that's like definitely a lesson planning thing that comes apart. Like I said with my rings, like I lesson plan my low, my mid, my high, all of those are ready because I don't know who's walking in the door, right? So we've got our low ring transition, right, with different dip variations happening. On the low ring transition, how can I change that to make that harder for my more advanced athletes?
You can have them do like a negative reverse, like from the
Yeah,
top.
I want everybody to kind of do a negative in some sense because it's also a skill when I come in the bottom of this dip and get back to the sternum to regain my false grip for the next rep. So I'm gonna kind of control that on everyone. If I've got like a ninja in class and he's just a gymnastic beast, that person I may intentionally be like, all right, just do strict muscle ups. Like it's your business, nobody's business. Then I may challenge that person to actually be negative. So you have a guy like that in Sola. He's one of these people that can do that minute strict muscle up challenge, like that kind of calisthenic strength. Like him doing muscle ups, no. I'm gonna make him do some kind of negative or some kind of complex. Like so, those things are good to have for like those real advancements for sure. What about like the foot placement on the low?
Box, like put them on a
Yeah,
box.
that can make a difference. So if my feet are right under me, it's gonna make it the easiest. If I start to bring my feet forward, I'm not gonna have as much help with the feet, and I've got to have a little bit more dynamic effort getting through an upper body strength. And then if I take my feet and I elevate them up on a box, that's gonna make it the toughest transition yet. So I can take those stages and make those stages depending on where my athletes are. Still on the low rings, right? This is where graduation points become like kind of important. Those rings that are like chest level, head level, that's going to be a jumping muscle up. Those are going to be for the people that are really need to make sure have the capability of turning over and not losing it. So they're going to show me strict strength, they're going to show me stability, all of those things. I have that point as well. So some people you're going to start to hand pick as we go through those low ring progressions to now graduate to those higher rings. And when it's the time that I'm going to graduate them to these higher rings where we're doing more of a jumping ring muscle up, that's also when I'm going to have them start to work on their kip, kip as my class does like low. Does that make sense?
Can I give a scenario that probably get some of Elise's feedback from here too? So I've been like so hesitant of doing the ring muscle up. Even back in the day when I was trying just a toe assisted, the turnover was always a big issue on my shoulder. And it was basically once my shoulder got into extension, into that dip position, it was
There's
like
issues.
a sharp pain in my left shoulder. So I've been working on dips like crazy. Been working on the low hold, the high hold. I can do like, I went from doing 0 to 6 dips now. But just last week, I tried again to see how it feels to do like a toe assisted ring muscle up. And once again, everything's fine here. I'm now my lats are working better. I'm getting better position with the rings. And then as soon as I come over and the rings start coming by my ribs, it's like, bam, that left
Issues.
corner again. Like, what is the
When
fix?
you do your ring dips, like when you're getting into the bottom, are you hanging out down there?
So as like I'll do a hold, I'll do dips, and then with the rings I have to do toe assisted. I could do six non-assisted on like a rig or the para bars. But yeah, then I'll do a toe assisted hold at the bottom for like 10 or 15 seconds. So I'm doing both.
Is one of the things, and I'll let like Elise chime in too, because it may be just the position's a little different with the actual scrape through. That's something I don't know. But something you have to look at when it comes to ring muscle ups is a lot of people just go, okay, I need to get stronger. That's only a third of the pie of what we need to happen on the ring muscle up. So strength is one thing, right? Skill is another thing. So it's neurological. That's why we do low rings to find those like motor recruitment and movement patterns and move in a good spot. And then, eventually on the higher rings, like these kipping drills and like kipping with a little bit of a float and all these things. That's why we do that stuff. It's not a strength thing. And then you have one more that a lot of people just ignore, and it's their biggest hindrance in the ring muscle up, and that's mobility. You see it a lot in dudes. They have crazy strength, but they can't get their shoulders open for the kip, and then they also don't have the range of motion in here for a turnover. So it's like if they were going to turn over and hit a muscle up, they have to turn their muscle up over and almost be like up here already because they don't have this range. And they're so confused why they can't get through that window. Their shoulders are literally like a brick wall. So like I've had clients ask me to do muscle up work, and part of that's their issue, and then they don't understand why I'm making them do crab walks with high hips and do dumbbell pullovers and things like that, and they get frustrated with the program, and a lot of them end up quitting. But it's because they're missing such a big piece of mobility for those positions that that's actually their issue on the ring muscle. In part, that may be you. I know you've been working on that a ton. The part I don't know that I'd be curious about is when you're in this zone from here, this movement pattern right here, not necessarily the bottom of the dip. That's just the way that shoulder blade's moving. If it's causing you issue there, that I don't know a lot about, but I'm sure can be.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna kind of bring up. I hurt my shoulder by sleeping on it, and for a few months, I couldn't really get into that position without extreme pain. And I started doing crossover symmetry like almost every day before warming up. And after I would say maybe a month or more, I was able to return to that position without any pain. So maybe that's something you should consider. Like, I don't know exactly what it was, rotator cuff, or I don't know what, but the crossover symmetry helped me.
And I'll try to do some research too to see if that actual like transition movement, like what the shoulder's doing, and if there's anything that like you can consider to do. But I definitely would say like flexibility, mobility is a huge part of this movement.
I'll mention too that it's a very similar feeling that I would have in a bench press at the bottom. And I would start feeling a very similar pain. I don't have it anymore. Now I'm just like weak as fuck in my bench press, but it doesn't hurt at least anymore. But yeah, that turnover, I was like, oh, there he is. It's still there. It hasn't gone. I've been doing a ton of the symmetry as well for my other shoulder stuff. Like 3 days a week now for like 2 months.
It may be a point that like you have to strengthen that part of the range of motion. So when someone's hurt or when they don't have full range, we see this all the time with like very new people that can't squat to depth, right? And have you ever had someone in class that does an air squat and their hips finally go below their knees, and when they go to stand, they're like, they don't move, and they're like, and they put their hands on the floor and they kind of roll out of it. Like it happens, and it's because why that person has never squatted in that range of motion. So they're real strong on the top half and they've got nothing on the bottom half. Same thing. Like if you didn't have the range to have that pull, when you hit that last inch or two, like your pec now is in a position where it's not strong right now and it's got to regain and build strength. So that may be just a part of it, of that real bottom dip position, or that real bottom bench press position. Just has to get stronger to start to be able to support the body weight more. That's why ranges of motions are so important. Because if you get put in real life in a position to where you haven't been in that range of motion, what do you think is going to happen, right? And that's why when you squat and you want to make sure our athletes' hips are going below parallel. if their hips never go parallel and they sit on a toilet that's too low and they're in their 70s and 80s, they're stuck. You know, it's funny to chuckle at, but I had an old job where one of our toilets was a child's toilet and it was lower. The other one was higher for like elderly. And let me tell you, a lot of people got stuck on the child's toilet. Yeah, it causes some messes sometimes. Obviously an extreme case, but just a real life example with that. I'll try to do some more research though, Justin, and find maybe why the turnover is like that, but it may just be a strength in range of motion thing. For someone like you or anybody that struggles with that, deficit push-ups can be a really good thing where you're getting a little extended and you don't have so much load of like a barbell, because a barbell, the bar touch chest, you can't go deeper at a certain point. So deficit push-up can be a really good thing to get a little more range. It can be treated kind of as like a mobility exercise, but you also have to press out and gain strength within that range of that mobility exercise. Small sets, doesn't have to be anything crazy. So I don't think you have to do sets of 10. It can be, sets of 3 to 5 to start. And, you got 5 or 6 sets there and you just build that over time. That's why you hear a lot of people talk about mobility work not being just like static stretching, but like let's go through range of motion with load, because that load is going to help strengthen that range of motion and maintain the healthy muscle length and contraction. Where were we on the muscle?
Turnover, low range.
Yeah, turnover, low range, turnover, jumping, and then maybe taking athletes to high rings. Obviously, if it's strict, you've already taught all that for high rings. If it's not a strict workout for the day and you have kipping, that's where you're going to teach kipping. That's something a lot of people can also jump on the rings and do kip swings for. We've talked about that before. Kip is very different than the bar. It's much more of a low body dominated. So like let people fly. Like that's where like that hollow shape on the ground and the Superman shape on the ground, like have them try to mimic that and let them be kids and let them kind of have fun with it. And then you can start to build that when you come up in the hollow, there's your full point. You start to build that into just, quarter pulls, half pulls, eventually like hip to rings. Make sure the athletes, give the ring a baby and try to send the hips to it. Like make sure their hip to ring is still like more or less in like a hollow body. There is some pretty advanced ring work that you can do when it comes to positioning. You guys have probably seen it at high level competition. Have you ever noticed how the girls will flick their feet out sideways? That's an intentional thing as well. You wouldn't see that in like a gymnastics competition. So yeah, at least have a good one. You wouldn't see that in a gymnastics competition. You would get pegged for points and you wouldn't do well. But that foot flick, it's kind of the same idea as like when we're doing butterfly pull-ups. You think about flicking the feet forward hard, kind of same logic there to just help propel momentum. I'll try
But it's
to
on the
find.
way, but it's
It's on
not
the way up.
right. Okay.
It's on the up. I'll try to find and see if I can find one of those like competition coaches like talking and teaching about that, so I can send you all a video.
I actually saw this a lot during the games. Gluck, she was it was the last 9th and 10th workout. She was doing that
on the bar muscle
up. She gets up here and then all of a sudden I see her legs go way wide and she's like squeezing the glutes aggressively. I've never seen the legs come way wide like that. Everyone else had their legs pretty much narrow.
She was the first person I've ever seen do it on a bar muscle up kipping the dip. So it was very unique to me to see her do that there because she was doing it for the dip for momentum with that. But same like concept, same idea. She just probably took what she did on the ring muscle ups and figured out a way to gain momentum there. And it's really the same concept as kipping the dip when you try to like kick yourself in the butt on the rings. But the thing about the bar is if you try to kick yourself in the butt too much, now you don't have that teeter. Like if you're over the bar and locking out, you don't have the balance on each side. If your feet are too high, you're going to be top heavy and potentially would go over. So by her keeping her legs straight and wide, she still has enough body on this side of the bar and enough body on this side of the bar to have balance. Does that make sense? So that was her way to figure out how to kick the dip, but without losing balance at the top of the bonus. pretty cool, like when you really start to understand like what she's doing.
I mean, she
Um,
basically won that event behind Tia. So
Oh, she smoked it. Yeah, she did great. She took she's a good puller, I would say in general, but she took the chest to bar and the bar muscle up section of that WOD.
she got the gymnastics
She shows.
background.
But I'll try to find that so I can post that video so you guys can see it. But when you guys do see very high level competition, you see mostly women do it because they want the extra boost. When you see those legs split, that is intentional. I would never teach members that because we're just not on that level. It's like me teaching them calculus before they know their times things, you know? Any other thoughts, questions on ring muscle-ups? Like how I would progress that?
So let's say somebody has like a few muscle ups, but not as many. I know you would either, just reduce the reps, but what if then at some point they don't have it? Where would you go to? Would you
Like someone that's gonna like be able to hit a muscle up, come down, walk around for a little bit, maybe hit another one, come down, walk around, maybe miss one, then maybe get one, like that kind of person.
Mhm. Or maybe like then at some point of the workout
They're
they
gonna
don't have them
they're
anymore.
gonna fall off. It really depends, I would say, on their dip strength and like the safety I feel there. If they're a little shoddy with it, like they have the strength, but it's gonna get to the point where I think they're gonna put themselves at a too compromising risk in a metcon, then I would probably have them do some high, like a jumping high ring. Keep the volume the same so they can build more of a stamina. And also if they're kind of shoddy with it, it gives them more opportunity to actually practice too and feel their body in space and time. If it's someone I trust and I know every time they get through, they're not going to be like a newborn deer and they're going to be solid, then that's a person that could be a good idea that obviously adjust the volume, but like let them count attempts. So, if they're doing hero WOD Nate and it's 2 muscle ups per round that they get to, and they're going to hit one, come down and hit one at that 15-minute mark when they're starting to get weird, I'm just going to say, hey, go up, try to hit one. If you miss, still count the reps. You're not stuck there. Come try to hit another one. And they'll probably get like a 50 hit missing. But that way, they're not just active and stuck forever. That's where I would allow someone to count attempts in. I would allow somebody to count attempts if I wasn't sure that they were going to be safe and go through. Because that's when you get those Hail Mary sit-ups that happen. And the Hail Mary sit-up usually leads to instability, and that's where you see arms shoot through, accidental iron crosses, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Just avoiding that at all costs. That's also something you can look at too, is like when people do transition, is it every ounce of might they have and they have to use all of it to get through? Or is their transition aggressive, but it's not like they're doing this, Hail Mary last attempt sit up to save their life. Like those are the ones that usually people get real weird on. So it's kind of a little bit of an analysis for a coach as well.
So then in a Metcon, like for, let's say, beginner, intermediate, what would you, or maybe more so for beginner, what would you have them do? Would you still have them try to do the low ring transition, or would you have them do pull up? Yeah, I mean the ring row.
Depends on the level of beginner. If I've got the level of beginner that they're moving through that well, and I'm gonna have to stay on top of everybody on the low rings. If I don't, all those low rings are gonna be turned into like I'm under the rings and I jump into a ring dip. That's what
Yeah.
it's gonna turn into, not a muscle up transition. So I have to be very relentless as far as coaching goes in a Metcon on that. If they can follow that movement pattern, I want them doing that because we're developing skill for the day, and I still can develop some strength at the top of that dip, on the lower down, stuff like that. If it's someone that's like very beginner though, and they're light years away, then I'm not gonna probably have them do that. I would give them like an alternative option, like a false grip ring arrow, jumping ring dip, or a push-up combo. It really just depends on where that beginner is. And I know that's hard for coaches to do because we're literally personal training everybody in the class on this, right? Intermediate, same thing. It depends on where they're at. Like, I'm gonna force them on the rings a little more unless there's like an injury or discomfort. But I'm gonna try to keep everybody as close to what a ring muscle up is as possible.
So, but
That should
it's
be our goal.
right. So, but then it would be okay to kind of slow them down. Let's say if they're doing the
100%.
transition and they're missing that bottom part, it's okay to
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay, slow it down, find that, and then once it becomes more natural, then you can, go try again.
100%. And that's what threshold training is. And like, good day to brief that in the WOD. Like, hey guys, we have, Nate's a great example. Nate's 2 ring muscle ups, 4 handstand push-ups, 8 kettlebell swings. Hey, on the ring muscle ups today, guys, you're gonna slow it down. You're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And like your pace going that slow is what we want. When you get on the kettlebell, go unbroken, rip them fast, go all in. You know what I mean? So they'll have different speeds depending on different movements that they're in. Usually when I teach fundamentals, I literally do that example. You have snatches and burpees. On the snatch, you're gonna set up, you're gonna think, you're gonna execute, you're gonna put the bar down, you're gonna take a breath, you're gonna think about what you just did, you're gonna set up, you're gonna exit. You know what I mean? And it shows them that it's okay to think and go slow. And then on the burpees, kill yourself. Go as fast as you can. Right?
Okay.
There's times and places for it. So briefing that and letting them know that that's okay, I think is also important because I know when I started CrossFit, I didn't realize that was okay. I thought I had to go 100% full speed, 100% of the time until I finished or I threw up. That was how the first 6 months of my CrossFit went. It was a horrible time. They don't realize, that that's okay. So yeah, slow them down, make sure they hit positions, all of that's fine.
Okay.
That's on any movement. That's threshold training. We move as physically as fast with as much intensity as we can without mechanics and consistency going away. If that means a snail pace, great. That's our intensity for that mechanical movement. If that means I look like T Clear to me, great. That's what we need to do for that. It doesn't really matter. Any other thoughts on muscle up? And then you just pray that it's not Amanda, and you don't also have to see squat snatch, right? You pray that the other movements are fairly simple, but not always the case. Cool. Let's talk about rope climb. Rope climb, I'm gonna approach in a very similar fashion. So rope climbs, what would be like the first thing y'all do?
Pull to stand.
Yeah, let's test. Yeah, hold the stand. Like I call them zombie pulls now. I think that's a cool name. Pull the stand. Let's see what people's strength are. Can they do it with straight legs? Do they have to bend their knees and kind of worm their way out of it? That's going to tell me a whole lot about their pulling strength immediately. Pull the stand's a great analysis. You're going to have people that go, holy shit, I'm going to just stay here. And then you solve your rope climb problem off set 1. What's after pull the stand?
The J hook.
Not yet.
Oh, maybe see if they can do a pull up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even simpler. Hang.
Oh, hang. Yeah.
Super boring, not exciting. I always make them hang because what happens when you learn the J hook for the first time? You get 1 or 2, you go up, and then you're halfway up or you're up at the top and you go, I forgot how to do it. I want to make sure that athlete has the ability to hold their own body weight and hang, at least to give them enough time to take a breath and remember, okay, swipe the foot, yada, 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 right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So I don't want somebody that can't hang for 10 seconds. Even though they may learn the J hook and figure out how to do that, it's just a recipe for a disaster. So I want to see their ability to just hold their body weight and hang. On top of that, I would like to see their ability for like a rope pull up. I don't need to make them do a ton, but like, hey, let's give me 1 or 2 rope pulls. So if shit does hit the fan and they have a brain fart moment, which early in my CrossFit career, I used to have brain fart moments all the time at the top of the rope. Luckily I knew the Spanish rap, so that's what saved my life every time. They're not in a fall 15-foot potential because they just had a brain fart. They're able to at least hold themselves, for longer than a few seconds. So I'm just going to kind of analysis that. If I've got somebody that knows and learns the J hook, but I don't want them going up because I see they don't have that strength yet, That's the person that I'm gonna, hey, we're gonna jump up, we're gonna lock our feet, we're gonna stand, we're gonna come off the rope, right? And if it's, you know, depending on their fitness level and their skill level, maybe you do 2 of those per rope climb, you know, to fill in the gap of rope climbs. Moving to the J hook, how are you gonna start that off? That's probably no.
Teaching it on a box.
Yeah, on a box. There's no reason to just have people jump off. Have them on a box, let them take their time, let them pinch their feet, stand up off the box. They can hop on it a little bit, make sure the foot's not gonna slip. Once we have that established, then let's go no box. I like to teach it without a jump, just because when people jump, for some reason, they immediately start panicking and they're like, I forgot how to do it. So I just, hey, grab the rope, pull your feet off the ground, pinch it, stand up. So there's not this like big dynamic movement happening. And then as they get more comfortable, if they want to start to take that into a jump, go ahead and take that into a jump. So you see how like each one is just gradually layered for that. As I go through, then it's gonna be, you have my green light, go to the top. I don't want you going to the top today. I want you just to jump up, lock your feet, stand, come off, do that 2 times per rope climb. So everybody starts to get their prescription, and that may be, you know, I'm depending on my logistics of the gym. I may have people sitting on a box to do that, and that may be their workout is to lock the feet, stand up, reset it, lock the feet, stand up. That's all going to just come down to how many ropes you have, things like that. What's
So
another good? Go ahead.
I guess let's finish that and then I'll ask my question.
Well, I'll hop in and ask a question. Would you put the zombie climb before the box J hook step? Because I've never seen anyone do that, but I like that idea. I think that's really effective. Not the zombie. I see people do the zombie stuff all the time.
Like, do you mean
But
for like a workout sake? Is that what you mean? Like
within the
Metcon?
Metcon, where you just have them on a box and you just do the J hook and stand?
I don't think I would put one over the other, to be honest. But what I would want to see is I would want to see variance. So like the person that's on that level, like, hey, let's do zombie pose one day because our goal for these rope climbs today is to build strength. That would be like if it's a legless rope climb day, I want to build strength. Versus if they're always just autoing to that zombie pull, I also want them to come off the zombie pool and like, let's go skill today sitting in the box. So I wouldn't be married to one or the other. I would make sure that we're getting variance in both based on what maybe they did last. I'm gonna add one more thing on that. Have you guys ever seen like when you hang a rope from a pull-up bar? Another really good one is have them on a pull-up bar and they work on doing like rope climb pull-ups with lock their feet. And they stand for the pull-up with the foot lock. That works really well to teach people the repeatability of the J hook over and over because they're on an implement that they're a lot more comfortable with. And they don't panic as fast. So it's like if you have 2 rope climbs, like they may do 4, lock the feet, do the pull up, and then come back down. Again, that comes down to, do you have like some ropes in your gym that you're able to put on the rig and do that with? They sell, you can go on Amazon if you're just on it and you want a recommendation for the gyms. On Amazon, they sell ropes that are pretty inexpensive and they're not 15 feet. They're like 8 to 10 feet and they're perfect for the rig because you don't have all this extra flying around all over either. But that's like another scale that's very similar to like on the box working on the feet. Without the scaries of like hanging off of it. But yeah, vary your on all movements, but rope climbs, vary your scaling options. Don't just auto scale to the same thing every day. I do that for pull-ups all the time. Sometimes it's ring rows, sometimes it's jumping pull-ups, sometimes it's banded pull-ups, sometimes it's toenail spots. Sometimes I get cute and I make them do a jumping chest to bar, even though it's not chest to bars. I mean, just as many different versions as I can expose them to is how I'm gonna try to get them to move the needle on getting to that RX. B, what was your question?
So what if you have, let's say, you know, squat snatches and rope climbs and you don't really have, you know, the skill for the day is going to be the squat snatch and not the rope climb. What would be the like a faster progression that you would do in that case.
For like time management.
Yeah.
And obviously this can be in any scenario, right? I think if you have two movements that are complex, you probably can have, unless you're doing with mayhem. If you're doing traditional cap, you have time to coach both for sure with good lesson plans. Like, and you're gonna have to choose what you're gonna coach. Like it's probably gonna be the barbell just out of like triage and safety. So it's like on that Rokan day, I'm gonna like really shorten my progression and testing with that. And it may just be, hey, group one, jump up, give me 2 pull-ups. Group, two, jump up, give me 2 pull-ups. Group one, jump up, swipe the left foot, pinch with it. And then when people just don't understand it, because I need, let's say I have squat snatch and another movement that I have to teach that I need to focus on, it's going to be, hey guys, if you don't have that skill today, like we're going to auto to this scaling option. And the next time we have rope climbs, we're going to like take more time. So like sometimes in some circumstances, depending on the timeline in which you have to get through, you do have to sacrifice a little bit on something, but then just let them know, like, if you don't have this skill, not a big deal. This is what we're going to do. So they have something to do, but you're not getting stuck trying to teach a group something that you don't have. You have 5 minutes to get through it. Unfortunately, that occasionally does happen, and it happens, I would say, a lot more when we do have strength in Metcon. Not just Metcon, but you have to kind of cut a corner on something, which I hate. I don't love doing it, but it is necessary for time purposes. That's a good example.
Like,
Amanda's
let's
a
talk
good-
about like having people that can do it and then beginners.
People that straight up can do it, it's going to be, hey guys, jump up, give me 2 pull-ups. Group 1, group 2. This is the third in row climb. Next phase, jump up. I want you to lock your J hook, but get the feet as high up as you can with it, and then stand. Just come down, like do 2 of those, and then go ahead for the third one. Because even though there's people like, oh, I know how to do this, I still want like 2 layers of I want to see you. I don't blindly trust anybody in the gym anymore. I learned my lesson. So even though people are saying I can rope climb, it's 2 layers for me to see, do you have the ability to do it? The group that has it, none at all, I might do, it could be zombie pull, where they bend, you're into 2 reps with bent knees, let them go all the way down, let them go all the way up. And then the second progression of that is let's try to do 2 reps with straight legs, so it gets harder. They go all the way down, they go all the way up. And then you're going to have somebody that's kind of in the middle that's like, well, coach, I learned how to lock my feet, but I don't think I can climb all the way. And then you're like, okay, show me, in your little transition to show you. And you go, okay, you're going to jump up, you're going to lock your feet, you're going to stand, you're going to come off. Like they're not going to go all the way. And you'll get some hybrids in there. And obviously those aren't athletes that are 6 months or less. Those are your people that have been around a little bit more. And you usually know them too, to be able to trust them to do that. But that's kind of how I would split those 2 groups in a situation where I don't have the time to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
I know on Mayhem, I've done that on double unders, where it's like we have 2 different barbell movements for the day. They're both like a barbell and a more complex gymnastic, and it's something I need to teach both of those on. We have dubs, and that's kind of like in the warm up, we hit some singles. I may do a quick progression where it's like the next round of the warm up's higher singles, the next one is double under attempts, but it's kind of like it's a day that I'm like, hey, if you got dubs, here you go. If you don't got dubs, here you go. Not ideal, but it happens. Any other thoughts, questions you guys have for rope climbs? One other thing I have, the pull strength for a rope climb is a little different than just doing a strict pull up. How could you build on a pull up bar? How could you build rope climb strict strength a little better? What would you do like with your hands?
You mean on a, you
You
mean
can
on
Would
a,
a mixed grip be a thing?
Yeah, change the grips up. So like obviously I can get on a rope and do strict pull-ups on a rope. That would be a phenomenal variation to build, legless rope climb strength. But I would play with the grips on a pull-up bar. Supinated grip is a big one. If some gyms have the attachments, Rogue makes when you have the double bar that you can do a neutral grip. Neutral grip is going to be the best. Also translates the pegboard very well. And then take a towel, throw a towel over, make sure it's a good quality towel, something you haven't reached 100 times, and do, I think they call them commando pull-ups. But do like towel pull-ups. Those are really good translations into strict rope climb, legless rope climb work. So a good way to have athletes train that without putting ropes up. I know some gyms you have to go outside with a ladder and put ropes up. That's a good way to do that without going through all that work. So just a little extra thought on strength. And we should be doing that anyway.
How many of those would you have them do? Like, if it's one rope climb, how many of those would you have them do?
If it's like a Metcon and it's one rope climb, I would probably have them do like 3 pull-ups.
Okay.
If I was doing it like that, if I'm just training it to build strength, that's going to come down to
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Okay.
There's something that I wanted to add up. We often go for scaling down options, but then there's the people that already know how to do fairly enough. So a few tasks that I come to make them challenging. I think we had last week we had rope climbs. It was like do actually the knee to elbows in the warm up. And then when we were doing it, it was okay. Let's try to do a knee to elbows. So put
With the
feet,
jag.
your feet as close as your hands, and then put your heels next to your butt. So you really do a squat and just go up. So that will be the first one. And then the other one is the descending one, the masters descending that you just like release and just go.
That's a tough one to teach, I'll tell you that.
That's very difficult.
You know, what's funny about that is, like I say, it's a tough one to teach. It's a tough one to teach depending on who you're teaching it to. If you get somebody that's a little more reckless, they usually get it real fast. If it's someone that's a little more cautious, it's very hard for them to grasp because it is a free fall pretty much. But yeah, I don't usually teach it to class. I just tell them, hey, let's open up the feet a little bit and control the descent. I only start to teach that when I see people that are more advanced, that I know can handle it, is when I bring it up to them a little more separate, not necessarily to the group. But yeah, that's a great thing for people that are advanced to keep them engaged in going through a progression and stuff like that. You can make them sit, right? Even if it's not a legless rope climb, and you're allowed to use J hook, make the advanced athletes sit on the floor. So it requires them to do like 1, 2, 3, 4 before they can lock feet. That's a really good way to make it harder as well. Or just they're not allowed to jump, and their first 2 or 3 pulls has to be legless before they can lock feet. Like the old school regionals when you cut the ropes, like you're kind of simulating something like that. I wouldn't say there's many people in the gym that you have to do that for, but there's usually maybe 1 or 2 that you can spice things up. Yeah, good point. Always look for not just scaling down, but ways to make things more challenging. You got somebody that is a pull-up wad and there's 30 pull-ups in a session, and they know that they have the capability and they're going to go unbroken 30 every time. That's a good person to say, hey, let's do chest to bars today. Or let's make sure we go unbroken. So look for those things and how to challenge people there as well. It also solves the problem, and you're very active as doing that as a coach, from that person that goes classes in the nook and it's too easy. 1, that's bullshit. But 2, if they feel that way and all of a sudden you hand them a chest to bar workout when it was a pull-up workout, it makes it substantially harder too. They don't really have any ground to stand on. Any other thoughts before we call it a day? Hopefully that was helpful on just like how you would walk through bring muscle ups and things like that. Obviously, if you guys catch any athletes doing them this week or yourself, feel free, send some videos in. We'll take a look at them, even if it's a low rate progression, like that's some good stuff to take a look at too. And see you guys on Thursday. Send some videos. I got a couple I think just a chance to look, but send some videos of anything really low.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Bye.
See you guys Thursday.